Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Ashley Mailloux, taking a look at the feature race at Woodbine on Sunday. It's the Steady Growth Stakes, carded as race number 11. Let's take a look at this field. We're going a mile and a 16th on the Tapeta. This race is for Ontario bred or sired. Ron's Gizmo, the number 4, is the 5-2 morning line favorite. This horse is just rock solid, whether it be turf, whether it be synthetic. I wonder if maybe he was just a bit too close to the pace last time out when an uncharacteristically flat fifth.
Yeah, I wonder about that a little bit as well. I do think he benefits from the surface switch with it being closing day up at Woodbine, all those races for the last little bit now on the synthetic. And I just think he's a synthetic specialist a little bit more as of late. Go to his races 2 and 3 back. I think he's right in the mix. My one knock on him, though, Dan, he's not having the year in 2024 that he had last year. He's only had that one trip to the winner's circle, 3 starts back.
We've got the defending champion in this race as well, the number 7 Secret Reserve, Lak Makaza, who's done good work on turf and synthetic. It really is a competitive field, and we throw up our Timeform US pace projector. I do agree with Timeform US that the number 2 Makwa is going to be able to make the lead stretching out in distance. I know they're taking the blinkers back off, but this guy's fast.
Very fast, and was fast last time out in that 6 furlong sprint. But even in those 2-turn races going a mile and a 16th, he's gone very fast. And typically that's sort of what does him in the stretch. I think he goes a little too fast early on. But I think if he wants to lead in here, he can get it. Secret Reserve's one that I think wants to be forward. You see no more options being forward. He can be. I just think last time out, he was close to what was a pretty slow pace.
And if the pace is hot, our morning line favorite, the 4 Ron's Gizmo, has the fastest Timeform US late pace rating. Let's start things off with the number 1 Mason's Gamble. This guy was entered for a tag last time out, showed some tactical speed, and then faltered, but was in against a pretty good bunch. The winner of that race really flattered the performance, coming back and running second in the valedictory the other day with an 88 buyer.
Yeah, it does flatter the performance for sure. And I think, looking at this one, he's lost a little bit of the step. I thought Mason's Gamble, though, earlier this year was running fairly well. I would have liked to seen him take a little bit more of a step forward. But for him, I don't mind him getting another try now going long. They tried this last year. We'll see what can happen. He just hasn't been the same in those last 2, and I think he'll offer value here, but maybe a horse that would find it tough to make it into my ticket.
Makwa is the number 2, blinkers off, stretching out in distance, should show speed, but there are a lot of minor awards on his page, lots of second and third place finishes, and he's just been stuck in that open second level allowance condition for a long time now, pretty much going back to the summer. So he's got to step it up and hope maybe they leave him alone on the lead.
I don't want to say that he can't get the 2-turn distance. I think he can with the right setup, but I'm not sure he's going to necessarily get it here. I think this group's a little bit tougher than what he's faced, such as last time out. And last time out was going 6 furlongs. You can see some of his tries this year at a mile and a 16th. It's gone one of 2 ways. It's either been really good or really bad. And I'm just concerned about him facing the likes of horses that he's faced before, and he typically doesn't finish in front of them.
The number 3 is Allegorical, and this one did some very nice things 2 starts back, considering he was returning off of a lengthy layoff, and he showed no rust at all, going the mile and a 16th over the all-weather that day. Now, they stepped him up in class in a first-level allowance. He took no money, which I think was a pretty bad sign, and then he really didn't fire. I question what he was facing that day. There was one next-out winner, but that horse needed to drop into a quarter claimer to score with that 82 buyer.
Yeah, it's tough to kind of decipher that last race. I feel like it was a really long layoff. So sometimes horses, second off the layoff, I think they go one of 2 ways. They either regress or take a huge step forward. Obviously, he was the first of those 2. But I also wonder about the trip. They went slower than they did in his return to the races, and he was further back. I don't think that helped him. But you bring up a great point, Dan, to see him go off at 3-1 or so in that long start, first start off that long layoff, and then go off at 26-1. It's a little alarming and kind of tells you that obviously the horse players were right that day, and he just finished mid-pack in a big field.
The 4 is Ron's Gizmo. He was a good third in this race last year. We're going to go back to his start 2 back. This is the Grade 3 Durham Cup. He ran very well in here. Everybody's got a chance turning into the stretch. And Ron's Gizmo keeps reaching out for the wire. He's just going to miss finishing second by a head. He got a career best 92 buyer speed figure for this race. And again, last time out when they switched him to turf, maybe he was a bit too close to the pace, and he did get into a little bit of traffic issue.
Yeah, I thought this was a really good performance. He doesn't really miss by much. I think the thing that flatters him is just the winner. Dresden Rowe has had a really good 2024 campaign, a three-time winner. Obviously won the Durham Cup, but then went on to win the Ontario Derby on the slight stretch out in distance, and just was defeated last time out, stepping up into Grade 2 competition. So I think in a lot of ways, 5-2 on the morning line, Ron's Gizmo deserves to be the favorite in here. I think you go to the races 2 and 3 back. He makes a lot of sense. And just wonder about his trip. Typically, I'm going to not talk about the turf races, but his last 2 tries on the synthetic, he's been a little bit adaptable, but typically he's pretty far off of it and needs the pace help. He'll need that in this spot, I think.
No more options. The number 5 is a 3-year-old that's been placed in some very tough spots this year, but he got a confidence building win 2 starts back on turf when working out a perfect trip going 7.5. And then last time out in the Lake Ontario, returning to this surface, returning to this distance. I like the fact that he made 2 moves. He went to the front, he backed off when another horse wanted the lead, and then he takes over very willingly and wins as an odds-on favorite should.
We'll see the trip that Ryan Munger is able to give him on Sunday. Obviously, in this race, he was much more forward. He tracked the pace setter and just ended up being much the best over Junior Hotshot, a respectable horse nonetheless. But the fractions, as I mentioned earlier, kind of talking about the pace, they were pretty slow. You're looking at some horses that have certainly gone faster and been right there. So I think if the pace is slow, he can be forward. I would suspect that Munger, if he feels like the pace is hot, they're going to try to have him rate a little bit more. He's shown to be effective doing that as well. The big question for him, though, is he's going to face older once again.
The versatile number 6, Lak Makaza, placed in this race as a 3-year-old in 2022. The same year, he finished a very good third in the Breeders' Stakes on turf, going 1.5 miles, the third jewel of Canada's Triple Crown. He's gotten back into good form. Here's his win in the Niagara. 2 starts back on turf, and he takes over the lead confidently, turning into the long stretch on the E.P. Taylor turf course, and he just keeps on chugging to win. His most recent start was the Singspiel. He was really close to the pace that day, and he was facing a very good field.
A very, very good field. He was also going to mile and 3/8. Different ball game. You talked about a good field. The winner, Truly Quality, who came back to win Grade 2 out on the West Coast. This is significant class relief for him. And I think looking at this performance, I know it was on the turf. It was strong. I like the way that he was able to win the Niagara. And you go down the page, his synthetic form, I think, is comparable to others in here. He's able to win 4 starts back, but even 5 starts back. I know he didn't win and he was beaten by 3 lengths. At least he showed that he is adjustable in terms of where he can be placed. So I think Julia Carey's done a very good job with him, and curious to see if he's ready to roll first off that little bit of a freshening.
Surprised that the connections have been seemingly hesitant with the 7 Secret Reserve to stretch him out around 2 turns. They win this race last year going 1.16 miles, and it's sprint, 1 turn mile. They get him back on turf in a 2-turn race, 2 back. He runs really well to get beat a half length. And last time out, I think he might have been compromised just a little bit, turning back to 7 in a slow-paced race. I think this time around, he's going to get a lot closer to the pace. And if you believe that the pace setter on our time form projector is overmatched, there's a chance this guy makes the lead turning into the stretch.
You bring up a great point. I mean, it seems like, he's had good races going 2 turns, but the times that we see him doing that, very far and few in between. And, obviously these tactics worked out pretty well for him last year. You can kind of see the spacing of the races. He had a race in November, sort of a similar situation. And maybe they just use that as a little bit of a tightener, but he's a horse that typically makes that 1 start a month, and that's how we see him run up at Woodbine. And I think he's an intriguing here from a pace perspective. Wouldn't be shocking to see him at least get a share in here, and we'll see what he does. He get S1 Flores in the irons, a new rider. There's not too much to say about him other than I think he's a little bit of a sleeper here at a good price.
Drum, the number 8's a really hard-hitting old horse. You got to be a fan of his. He won the King Arvey all the way back as a 2-year-old, I think, in 2018, and he's still going strong. I like him getting away from turf and back to synthetic. I think he's much better on the all-weather surface. Last time out on the overskate, he was just sort of held up behind a slow pace on turf. In the Singspiel, he was overmatched when pushing the pace. I just wonder if he's as good as Lak Makanza is, who I think is equally as good on the synthetic and turf, and Lak Makanza has been handling Dundrum on turf.
Yeah, that's the concern. I think if you look at Dundrum 3 races ago on Woodbine Mile weekend, pretty good performance. I think that level that he faced, not seeing a lot of horses come out of that race and obviously enter here, but it was a respectable bunch that he beat. I thought he did it nicely, getting a nice stalking trip. But you bring up a good point of he's faced several in here. They're typically on the other side of it, on the winning side. But the one thing I will say, Fraser Abley's been riding him considerably, kind of those last several starts, quite well. Obviously, maybe overmatched going to mile and 3/8 on the turf, or even last time out 7.5 on the inner. But Fraser's been riding very well, and a couple of those times on the Tapeta, those races are at least competitive here.
And completing the field is a stakes winner. That's the number 9 Rapid Test, who's jumping back up into the stakes ranks off a pretty good second, going 7/8 of a mile on the synthetic surface. Just another race where he was held up, came with a nice run. I like that he seems pace adaptable. I think he can be aggressively ridden in here and find a good spot without losing too much ground onto the first turn. We'll see with Rapid Test, though, Ashley. I'm a little bit concerned about him stepping back up into the stakes ranks.
I am. I'm a little concerned about him in some regards at 7-2 as well.
Yes.
I feel like when you look at him perform well, it's not when he's usually getting bet, right? I'm not saying that he's still not running well, but he's not getting the major shares at that point. Last time out, he was a little cold. He ran a big second, 15-1. You know, you kind of look at those patterns, and I feel like the disappointing performance from him, to me, I know was on turf, was the 7.5 on the inner and the overskate. I thought he should have run better than that. Yes, he was rolling late, and maybe it is part of the reason of the distance, right? Maybe 7.5 was a little bit too short for him, but have some reservations about him, especially at that short price.
Well, let's take a look at our top selections for the steady growth. It's a wide open race. Lock Makaza to me is just really solid, whether it's synthetic or turf. Has the excuse of just being in too tough last time out. You mentioned the winner of that race is a really nice long distance grass horse. And I just think getting back to a mile and a 16th, this horse can kind of chill out in mid pack and make a late bid.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything that you said. I think kind of looking at these performances, you go to the race 4 back, just second off the layout. This horse ran very well on the Tapeta, and then in those following starts, a lot to like. I'm going to attribute last time out maybe being close to the pace, going to mile and 3/8 over good ground, and just really excited to see Lock Makaza get back on the synthetic. And to me, this horse is going to take respect. I'm very curious to see the off odds between this one and Rounds Gizmo, who I see that you tossed. I use Rounds Gizmo underneath, but for me, it was kind of a tough sell on the top spot based on that record this year.
You mentioned, you said it all when talking about the 9 horse, my second pick. Just 7-2 to me seems a little bit light, even with the gaudy recent buyer speed figure staring you in the face. I think just like Picasso might go off a decent a price off of kind of a dirtied up running line. 6479 for Ashley, 6971 for me. It's the steady growth at Woodbine on Sunday. Good luck.
Hey, let me give you a hot tip. If you liked the content that you've seen before, click on the like and subscribe button right here. And of course, for more DRF videos like Race of the Days, stakes previews, click on the videos right here.